Hi there, and welcome to the Oikos Family Podcast. I'm so glad that you stopped by and to have a listen to this next podcast, because there are a few things I wanted to chat to you about today. The one is that I've been having quite a few phone calls from moms that just seem to be quite stressed, quite anxious. They seem to be having so many reasons to be anxious as well, like concerned about the level their child is at, or keeping up, or being able to afford things, or being able to get what they need on time when that is for them, the time that seems right for them. So I've been spending quite a bit of time just really trying to encourage them to look at things a bit differently, maybe. Instead of being stressed about, what they don't have, perhaps, or about the progress that their child or children are making, to rather just look at the moment that they're in and think about what they can do with that moment to make it a fond memory, whether it's opening a workbook and doing a lesson, or whether it's going to the kitchen and cooking something, baking something, whether it's reading a story to them, doing a craft, whatever it might be. As I say, even if it is just out of the book, doing a worksheet or a lesson. I've been trying to encourage moms to just think about the very moment that they are in and really take time to ponder on what that means to them, that moment, that they've got that moment with their child, that they've got that very moment in time, that they can actually just be enjoying what is happening in that instance. I was just feeling like I really needed to encourage the moms to actually stop and take time to think about the things other than what is causing them such anxiety, the things that they're feeling troubled about. Because it seems like it's so much. It's not just moms, it's like just society in general. There's just so much on people's minds that are causing them to feel anxious and stressed and just worried about what is going on, what is happening, and are we going to be okay? And this is, in other words, what I'm saying is there's so much to be anxious for that around everybody all the time, that I'm suggesting to moms to shut that out of their minds if they can for a moment, and look at the moment that they're in that doesn't have those concerns, such as the children playing, and just enjoy watching the children play, or watch, or if you're sitting doing a lesson with them and you suddenly catch yourself feeling appreciative of the fact that you can actually do this. You can sit next to your child and you can do a lesson with them, and dwell on that moment and let your mind be filled with the moment that you're in, so that it cancels out all those anxieties, and you're left with just this sense of gladness and joy. You might just find yourself having a smile. You might just find yourself feeling some peace flooding in, and just realizing, well, what was I actually worrying about? Why was I worrying so much this morning about this and this and this and this? And when actually, if I just stopped those worries and looked in my very moment that is now, and look at what is in now, that is going to remove all those worries from me, just in that instance. So I was suggesting that to one mom today, well, not today, actually, it was a couple of days ago, and suggesting to her that she tried that. Well, you know what? She phoned back. It must have been about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. She phoned back and she said she'd been doing that, and it was absolutely incredible. She didn't actually realize how much she had been worrying. She didn't realize that she was spending so much time in her mind just being anxious about things. And to be intentional about not being anxious wasn't something she had thought to do. And when she did do that, when she became intentional about not worrying and replacing that worry with something, she was absolutely amazed at what that did for her. Another mom that I'm thinking about now, was really, really concerned that she couldn't afford the maths that she needed for her children. And she just said it's so difficult because her husband's the single breadwinner, and she doesn't even want to ask him for the funds that she knows that they're going to need for the next level of maths. And here you can hear she was just getting more and more worried about the situation. It wasn't just the funds, it was also, but my children are going to finish their levels of maths, their books, and I'm not going to have the next ones ready for them. So it went from worrying about being able to afford the books to worrying about her children not having what they're going to need to move on with, to worrying about them then falling behind something, to worrying about, and it just kept on going. Them being upset that they didn't have their books. And so I just said to her, stop. And I shared this idea with her of, let's not worry about whether you're going to have the books, whether you're going to have the funds. Why don't you start applying maths? Just taking all what you've learned and the children have learned out of their books and start putting it into everyday application, and fill your mind with thinking about what can you do to apply in an everyday living situation what they learned today out of their division. When they learned division, how are we going to apply that in everyday life? Or if they're doing fractions, how can I apply that? And while I was sharing that with her, this mom said, but I'm just really not very good with that, and I'm really not very good with being creative with those kinds of ideas. So I said to her, well, your children are. Why don't you ask them? Why don't you ask them? Because, children are naturally creative, as we are. It's just that some of us don't think we are, and we don't believe we are, but we actually are. So I said to her, but just ask the children, okay, you've been doing division. Where are there things in life where we need this, where you need to practice and understand and learn division? For what purpose? Let's think about. Let's try and think for a moment about areas where division is going to be necessary, or we're going to need that skill later on, or even right now today. And I said, why don't you do that instead of spend your time doing that? I said, instead of being really anxious about their next book. She said, okay. She wasn't terribly convinced. And then again, I got another phone call, and I thought, okay, I'm going to the next podcast. I'm going to talk to you, all the moms, about this, because this mom phoned back. And she said, she was so surprised. First, she had never even thought to think about it in that way. She says she must admit she's just has been thinking about the next book and that the lessons need to be done and they need to keep up. And she never thought about applying it and maybe stopping with the workbooks for a bit and just exercising and putting into practice the skills they had been learning through their lessons, whether it's language or science. Or science is an easy one because they're doing activities a lot of the time, so you don't have to think about how to apply it because they are applying it. But when it comes to things that for this mom were more sort of abstract, she couldn't imagine how she's going to take the lesson out of the book and put it into daily practice. That's what she wasn't sure how she was going to do that. Well, it didn't take long, and she found herself, because she's been intentional about it, she found herself realizing, once she started doing this, how incredibly important it was and how necessary it was, and why she felt that had she not thought about doing this exercise, just trying this, how she would have perhaps missed it completely. And now she's just so grateful that she's not going to get the next books, when she thinks she needs them, and the stress on her husband for the finances and so on and so forth. They're just going to do applied maths for a while. And when the money's together for them to get their next levels, well, then she will. So that was what I wanted to share with all of you. And that's why I'm glad you stopped by to listen, because, I can have one conversation with one mom and another conversation with another, and then I think, I'd so love to share that with other moms, for them to take from it what might be useful to them. So if there's anything from this podcast that will be useful to you, then I think that is wonderful. I'm very, very glad for that. And I'm going to leave you with all of that for now. And I'm going to look forward to sharing with you again in the next podcast. So thank you for listening, and bye for now.